Recording in progress. How you doing, Gordon?
Doing very well, thank you, Andrew. Yourself?
Yeah, really well. Really, really well. Very excited for this workshop today. But before we announce the secret subject, we should have a regular feature of the show like Alan Partridge. Today's regular feature of the show is the secret subject. Um,
Aha.
shall we, do you want to quickly introduce yourself, Gordon? And
Yep. So Gordon Forsyth, parent of two children, or adults as they are now, um, and they both have diagnosis of autism, ADHD, and various other bits and bobs. And
hmm,
I am also the chair of PACT, Parents and Autistic Children Together.
which is a support group in Lincoln
Yes, it is a parent
and,
support.
and the world.
Indeed, if anybody wishes to join me on
Yeah.
email or I mean on online, then we can.
So I'm constantly telling people from all over the country to join Pact. So because there's nothing quite like it anywhere else, is there really?
No, not at all.
So my job, my I'm a specialist in neurological disorders, and I do observations, consultations, parent support work, online support, all that sort of stuff, and mostly schools and colleges, but pretty much everywhere really,
Hmm.
you know. Um, so that's me. So, God, I was going to tell you something. So I
You
wrote
are.
a report. Oh, just getting comfy. Oh, if you'll see Mrs. Whitehouse walk up and down, it's her um, cameo appearance. So, um, right. Yeah. So I wrote a report, which I do regularly on a young person in a setting, and how they're doing, and how they're, what we need to do to help them. And I got a frantic, if you can have such a thing as a frantic email, and then several frantic voicemails. Can I talk to you about your report? This was somewhere in England.
Hmm.
And this report, the person who commissioned it basically said, uh, you need to take out any references to spending money.
Oh,
So any references to this child will need one-to-one support. Any references to this child will need an EHCP. Any references to anything like that had to come out.
how strange.
Well, yes. No, it wasn't Birmingham. But the word on the street is this is another local authority in trouble.
Yes.
So, and it definitely wasn't Birmingham that I was working with. So it's interesting, isn't it?
It is, and I mean, a report is a report.
Hmm.
What people do with that report is up to them, but they shouldn't,
So,
for me, they shouldn't be telling you you've got to take this, this, or this out
hmm,
because this is what the report is on the child, surely.
yeah, surely, yeah. And it actually, once all that's gone, it's quite insipid a report.
Yeah, yeah.
So there you go. So what can you do? And if you're going to ask me, did I do it? Yes, I did do it. I did it for this reason, and this reason only is that child needed some support. And the best I can do. So I did rearrange the report in a different way. Um, but because we've got to we have to work within the boundaries we're set, unfortunately, don't we? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't like doing that, but I understand that
mm,
we do have to do it.
we
But it's
do. Yeah, we do.
I'm sure you'll have had your say, although you changed it, you'll have had your say, in as much as I would have had mine.
Yeah, well, there'll be a TAC meeting probably, and that's when I'll have my say. So,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Hey, Gordon, what we doing today?
So under the podcast of Neurodivergence, More Than a Label, we are
More than a
talking.
label.
We are going to be talking about attention.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yes, sir,
Attention.
sir.
Surely there can't be much to talk about there, Gordon. He said in a kind of
Well, I can't remember, to be honest.
right.
No, I
So
can. I
I know
can.
you can. Attention. So attention, where I see the word attention most is tucked up in the corner of the criteria for ADHD, where it goes attention deficit, hyperactivity, impulsivity.
Yeah,
And usually attention deficit is at the top. If you look at ADHD, in my experience, the stuff that people are most interested in is the impulsive behavior, because
yeah,
that's the one that brings you the most trouble. That's the one where the child maybe hits another child, and you say, "What'd you do that for?" And he says, "I don't know," or she says, and you go,
yeah.
"You must know, you did it." But no, they really don't know because it's
They
impulsive
don't.
behavior. And so that's the one people are most interested in. Um, but in my experience, but attention is a big, big, big one because it's not just attention deficit, is it?
No, no. There's so many layers to
Mm,
attention,
mm.
and I think it's bypassed an awful lot by the majority of people to the severity that it
Mm.
causes individuals and the problems it does create,
Yeah.
both for any neurodivergent child and the sensory world as well. Um, and people just think, well, why can't you pay attention?
Yeah.
Um, and the comprehension of not being able to do that, if it's something you do on a regular basis, is very difficult to grasp. And I do understand that if you haven't experienced it, it is difficult to grasp it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's I mean, I don't want to plug the book, but if you want to be plugged, I wrote a book called Andrew and the Magic Give a Shitometer. And the Give a Shitometer is a reference to attention. What can you pay attention to? And I make this kind of like all the little stories I do on the workshops are all true, but this one's a particular favorite of mine where it's a particular favorite of mine where people come up to me after a conference presentation, and they'll say, "Oh, my nephew's autistic," or something like that, and I will just not be interested.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about someone's nephew. However, if a mum or a dad comes up to me and say, "We're having a terrible time at home, this, that, and the other," and I'll say, "Well, come on, I'll buy a coffee. Let's talk about it." You would think they're the same thing, but very, very tightly, there's a very small but very important difference. One's direct, one's indirect. So attention, you've got to be interested, haven't you?
very, very interested.
Yeah.
Um, and it's holding on to the belief of what what do we need to do, and what do we need to understand
Mm,
about the way our child pays attention, or however, because if you spoke about ADHD and your book, um, and you've said it before in a number of schools
mm,
that if a child is sitting really well behaved and looking at you, doesn't necessarily mean they're paying attention to
no,
you.
not at all.
Because we've told them to do that, but
Mm,
we're potentially stopping them from learning.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And there's all this, business with particularly the small children, sit on your bottom, cross your legs and fold your arms and listen for 20 minutes. You know,
Yeah.
it's like one of those, what do they call it? I don't know. Tension positions or something like that, isn't it?
Oh,
That that the,
you're probably
the,
right, but yeah,
you know,
stress positions are for
yeah, yeah, where you kind of like have to sit in a position specifically because it's uncomfortable. But
yes,
yeah, so yeah, it's an interesting one, and when we talk about sitting, we have people who need to fiddle with something because it helps them to pay attention.
yeah,
But then when we put single attention into it, the fact some people, particularly autistic people, can only concentrate on one thing at a time, we then say, well, they really shouldn't fiddle with something because it's stopping them from paying attention.
mm,
And then we're back to, um, we're back to that whole, there's not one set way of doing things.
no, well, there can't be, can there? Because we're dealing with individuals.
Mm. Mm.
and it's what the individual needs to learn.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about neurodivergent, we are talking about the inability for the brain to necessarily comprehend
Mm.
the attention span that's needed to
Yeah.
carry a particular task,
Yeah.
because they may just have a single attention on something that interests them only, and anything else outside of that,
Yeah.
don't give a monkeys, and therefore you're never going to get them to pay attention.
No, no, you're not. So let's talk about that attention span. So the attention span is, you tell me, do you remember?
Well, I think it's your age plus a minute until the age of 16, and then it's 16 plus a minute, whatever, and then it's minus a third.
Yeah, age plus a minute, take away a third. Yeah, and that, I mean, in itself, so let's start easy. Let's start with a 15-year-old,
Yeah.
you know, that's 10 minutes.
Hmm.
When was the last time you saw a secondary lesson that was 10 minutes long or an activity?
I don't think there has been one, has there?
And there will be enlightened people out there, but um, in a special school, yeah, I speak to my wife and she'll say, "Oh, mine couldn't do that or couldn't do this or whatever." But I think people are more likely to do that stuff in special educational settings. But when it comes to it, no, of course not. And they'll say, "But we're a secondary school, and that's an ADHD child."
Yeah.
What there's no you're telling me the obvious. I know it's a secondary school. I typed so and so secondary school into my sat nav. What are you trying to tell me that I don't already know? But but ultimately, you have to take into consideration the way people learn, not through
Mhm.
choice. It's not a will, it's a need. And therefore, we've got this situation. I mean, so let's drop it down to a 5-year-old on the carpet, 5 years plus a minute, six, take away a third, 2 minutes, a 4-minute attention span. You rarely see less than 20 minutes on the carpet.
Yeah.
And then you could time it like your watch. Honestly, you could set your watch to it. Then the hair plaiting all starts and the prodding people because they can't do it. It just can't do it. So,
No. It. I mean, when I talk to parents and I do some workshops occasionally, I try and bear in mind the
mm,
time scale. But oh my goodness, trying to stick to a 5, 10 minute period to deliver
mm,
chunks,
yeah.
I forget because I just like to talk when I get going.
Yeah, yeah. And that's
And
the
it's
difference,
frustrating.
isn't it?
Yeah, but I think for me, I do say to anybody who's ever in there,
Mm,
this is your space, do with what you want. So you can get up and move about and
yeah.
do other things and that. So I'm not expecting to sit and be
No.
still. And I put a lot of fidgets out on the table for them to grab and play with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do forget about stopping after, well, not stopping, but changing
Okay.
um, the, 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 the area for that 2 or 3 minutes and get back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not, I think so. I think a lot of teachers may try and do it, but sticking to it's another thing sometimes, I think.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Mrs. Elsa Whitehouse has walked in. Do you want to shout hello to the listeners, Mrs. White? Hello. Yes, we should get her on one day because what she doesn't know about attention. What's that thing you do? Attention autism. That's another one which is absolutely brilliant. I'm quite fascinated by it, but um, it's all activity based. Right. So what you're talking about is okay. So you actually talked about talking to
Yeah,
people. Okay. In the neurodivergent world, particularly ADHD and autism, is talking a good thing?
not for everyone.
No, no.
No, we need to vary it
Mm,
with various different
mm.
communication systems, really, don't we?
Yeah, we absolutely do. Multimodal, I mean, and there's so many multimodal things, aren't there? But, you know, it used to be with VAC, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Do you remember that?
Not really, no.
No, it's probably a bit more education based for you, isn't it? But
Yeah,
you used to have to write a lesson plan back in the days when I was a teacher, and you had to put in what you were doing for visual, what you were doing for auditory, and what you were doing for kinesthetic. And of course,
right.
now we know there's so many more things, but with the communication. The verbal communication, particularly autism is prefers visual communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why we have the visual timetables, and that's why we have the incredible 5-point scale and all those lovely, lovely things that we do. The zones of regulation. Now that's interesting because the zones of regulation are a visual communication tool to help
Yes.
you regulate. We don't have a verbal communication tool to help you regulate, do we?
No, no, because the biggest thing for the verbal for most people to tell people to regulate is calm
Calm
down.
down.
And
Yeah.
that's just the complete opposite because it winds everybody up
There's
like
nobody likes to be told to calm down, is there?
no.
And so um yeah, it's an interesting one as well. Where else do you think we need to think about attention, Gordon?
Well, attention is either children shouting out
Mm,
or being the class clown,
mm. That was me.
or it's a matter of the things I hear is that they're just attention seeking.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And attention seeking gets them into trouble because it's a matter of I don't want to hear you. But
Yeah.
actually it's attention communication. I need to get some feedback.
Yeah.
I want something, isn't it?
Well, I've always called it attention needing.
Yeah.
As I've got a bit older, I realised there are both attention needing and attention seeking. And so your attention needing, maybe a child who, just needs a bit of support at school. Maybe there's a new baby in the house or anything, like that. That's a bit of attention needing. They just need they need a little buff up, don't they, to feel good about
Mm.
themselves. Whatever a buff up is, I don't know. And and then attention seeking is the class clown, possibly ADHD, and definitely got their own sort of little agenda, and wanting not only to get the attention of the class, but all the people sitting around them as well,
Yeah.
so it's kind of interesting stuff. Um, but yeah, attention communication. Tell me more about that, Gordon, because I'd not heard of that before till now.
What attention communication or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in terms of attention communication, um, I don't really. If there was a name to it, and if I brought it up, I may have said it in the wrong way because I don't really understand what attention communication is, other than if
Mm,
we are um, trying to get information across to somebody
mm,
and we are expecting them to listen on our wavelengths, we've got to sort of say, what's the tone of our voice? Are
mm,
they actually listening to the tone of voice? Are we making it difficult to understand? Does it come
mm.
across as being angry?
Yeah.
Therefore, are we losing their attention because we are not saying it in a calm manner,
Yeah.
saying it in a structured manner,
Mm,
and we're giving too much information at one time.
yeah.
And so we have to know who we are talking to in terms of their potential diagnosis. Because if you give a child, um, you say it in a lot of times, too much words, you've
Mm,
lost their attention because they can only focus on
yeah.
the potentially the last three words they've
Yeah.
actually heard, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Of the
I think
20
that's what I was
words,
meaning, really.
yeah, of the 20 words you just said, I heard the first three. Or I could sometimes hear a few words at the beginning, but the rest became a blur because after it, you're just going, not interested, gone.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and so gaining that attention, what we're saying is, and I didn't think about this when we've talked about doing this workshop, gaining that attention, there's a skill to it.
Yeah.
There is a skill to it. It's about what you say, how you say it, and how much of it you say. I mean, that was when I first worked in autism, which is a very, very long time ago. I couldn't even tell you when. Um, when I first worked in autism, that was the one that confused me the most.
Uh-huh.
That I'd go, sit down now. And that was supposed to be helpful. And I remember going, it just feels rude to me.
Hmm.
Just feels like they're being rude. But actually, sit down now. I remember a mum saying to me, um, "You, you're not being rude. You're helping him." And you know the family I'm talking about as well. But you're not being rude. You're helping him, and that took a lot because that's a shift, isn't it?
Yeah,
In what we normally do, we do all the pleases and thank yous and yes sir, no sir, and actually that autistic person may only want 3 words. Sit down now.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Don't confuse me.
yeah, yeah. Don't confuse me. And so, um, we have that. We have that, but then going back to what you were saying about your workshop, you get caught up and you carry on and you talk and you deliver and you do all your stuff. You know, I did a TED talk, 20 minutes long. So actually, I was expecting people to sit still, say nothing for 20 minutes. Well, it's not
Yeah,
me, but these are some of the most prestigious talks in the world. And yet, so drop that in, didn't I?
of course you did. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
good TED talk.
It's all right. It's all right. I think my daughter did a better one. Um, but um, but yeah, we're doing this stuff all the time, really all the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so what's the best kind of attention then, Gordon?
The best kind of attention is where the child is engaged. I don't know if there's a particular name for it,
Right.
because as you know, I'm not coming from the education
No,
background.
no, I don't
Where
know myself. I'm only
where
asking
where
you.
you've got the child engaging with you, um, and
Mm,
it's a sort of a positive feedback. It's a two-way
mm,
communication,
yeah,
um, and again, it depends on the individual. But where we are bringing in their interests into the conversation
yeah,
and relating to their level of what they want to engage with, and then
yeah,
we can
yeah.
bring it around occasionally. I meet children for the first time, and sometimes adults, and I want to let them know that I understand them.
Mm,
And so I'll sort of say, right, what's your main difficulties? Do you know? No.
mm,
And again, they are very short questions. I
yeah,
said, I bet you struggle with this. And,
mm,
oh yeah, I do. And I
yeah, yeah,
bet this is the reason behind it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. How do
So
you know this?
yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like you've made an effort to get to know them, which I'm sure you have.
Oh yeah, I have, but because I've spoken to parents and get a
Yeah.
general gist of things, you know roughly where their main problems are for the communication side
Mm,
and why they're not able to engage because they're not holding the person talking to them has failed to hold their attention into I'm interested in you. So if we look at schools, I need you to come to school. I need you to get into school. I need you.
yeah, yeah,
How can I help you feel safer? How can I help you feel comfortable coming to school? What do you need? Take away the what we need as a school. What is it you need? I want to
yeah.
help you. Um,
Now,
and that's the difficulty, I think, to get the attention.
yeah, and I was actually talking about this today. Um, I was talking about this today about the fact that this person's son has been told in order to fulfill criteria for funding, they've got to show up at a certain club on a certain night, um, um, and to be with certain people. It's once a fortnight, and because they didn't go, they missed out on some funding. But unfortunately, if they had have gone along, all hell breaks loose. This
Yeah,
kid can't stand being in that environment. So then we get, communication, um, which is uh, not people are not communicating in a way that the child needs. They're not communicating in a way that the parents need. The parents need someone to listen, you know.
yeah,
I mean, you know yourself. I mean, the last few weeks for me, when we're trying to get people to listen, that's not easy, is it?
no,
And
no,
they're going, you must jump through this hoop, do this, this, and that, you know.
yeah,
And really, that if we jump it back to attention and we're going, they've got no facility to paying attention to those activities in that setting with those people. They can't do it, and it doesn't inspire them. It may even frighten them. S-
Yeah, and have we given a good enough reason to listen,
Yeah,
to
well,
want to
yeah,
pay attention,
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever? Because
Mm,
if it's not there, why would I? Why would I want to? You're saying I have got to do this.
mm,
I've got to do this for you. Well, I don't want to do that.
no,
There's no reason for me to do that.
mm,
And it's this lack of understanding of let's take it from their point of view first of all.
yeah,
We can bring our point of view in later.
child-centered.
Yeah, it's got to come from where are they now and
Yeah,
then turn it around.
yeah,
And I was talking to a child who had been excluded for 2 days
right,
um, for apparently saying things that weren't in conjunction with the school's policies.
yeah,
And so I just sort of said to him, can I ask you, when people talk to you, um, and you don't necessarily understand them or you don't
mm,
agree with them, what's the first thing you want to do? And without thinking, he immediately answered, I want to hurt them.
yeah,
I
yeah,
says, gosh, that's really interesting. This child's, I think, 8 years old.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
thought, wow, that's a really big thing
mm,
to say for him. I want to hurt them. I said, why do you want to hurt them? I don't know. I says, well, is it because you don't know how to reply to them, or you don't want to do what they're asking you to do, but you don't know how to
mm,
respond back or whatever? Or what? He says, yeah, I'm lost when they say
yeah,
things, and if I hurt people, I'm going to get help
yeah,
from teachers. It might not be the right help that he's looking for, but the
no,
teacher take him out of that situation, or somebody
yeah,
comes and takes him out of a situation. And I was thinking, what amazing insight! And they're not allowing him to give this information across to
mm,
then I suppose, get the right attention for what his needs are. He's getting the wrong attention
yeah,
from his fellow students and also from the teachers, based on his inability to be able to express properly. And
yeah.
so the attention coming back to him is all the wrong, and it's very, very negative stuff that
But
he's receiving.
but you see, there is no wrong attention, is there? In as much as the children in that position we see all the time, and they quite often are put into a belief that it's better to have some attention than no attention. So the wrong kind of attention, hitting, hurting people, whatever you may be doing, calling out in class, climbing up on the roof, whatever it is you're doing, uh, it is the wrong kind of attention. It's getting the wrong kind of results. But for them, they're getting attention. And so
Yeah.
if the one that I see a lot, there's two. There's absolutely two that really drive me crazy. I'm offloading now, Gordon. Um, so the one is the child is doing something in a classroom that they shouldn't be doing, and a teaching assistant or somebody comes up to see what's going on. Someone else comes over to see what's going on with that. Then the head teacher's walking down the corridor, pops their head in to see if they can help. And the Senko gets phone calls, says, come on in. And that child's just learned how to get the attention of four people.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. And then the second one, evacuating the classroom,
Mm,
and okay, I'm not there when it happens. So it's nice and easy for me to say, don't do it. But again, You know, imagine that the feeling of influence that that child has got. I was going to say success, but influence that they
yeah.
can empty 29 other kids out into the playground, you know, and,
That's
and
huge, isn't it?
it's just massive, isn't it? And so what we have to do is then educate them to get the right kind of attention. Now, the right kind of attention is positive things, okay? And so the idea is, I mean, I was told years ago, when I first was in education by a teaching assistant, they were fantastic for this woman. She never had any behavior problems at all. And she said to me, I praise the good and ignore the bad. Well, I tried that, and it's not as easy as it sounds. Um,
It's odd.
it- no, but what is easy is to build on that. So what I always say is, tell the child, from now on, I'm not going to, when you behave negatively, I'm not going to respond to that. But when you behave positively, I will. And it takes time, but you've got to be over the top with your positive feedback. You know, you've got to give them opportunities, little jobs and things like that, jobs, roles, responsibilities. Um, and in fact, that jobs, roles, and responsibilities, I write that so often in my reports,
Yeah.
you know, that I've got it on a autocorrect JRR because it's a real winner of a strategy. And so we've got that all happening, and it takes a while. It takes a long time, but you ultimately you're teaching them to seek and need the right kind of attention, and everybody's happy. But you know, it's a very difficult one. And one little boy that was in not far from here. It was at lunchtime, and he ran to the bottom of the field and hid behind a shed. Now he's a fella that likes his dinner, but he wasn't coming out because he wanted the attention of his one-to-one to come and fetch him. And I said, don't. He's hungry. He'll eat. I'll
Yeah.
make sure there's a lunch put aside for him. But when he's hungry, he'll eat. And this woman's in floods of tears, because, but he needs it. He needs, yeah, not like this. He doesn't. Not like this. He
No.
doesn't.
No.
You know.
And there was a when I was newly into the job of caretaking, and I go around the site,
Yeah.
particularly at playtime, if I'm going from one area of the school to the other. There was this one lad, um, was looking from the outside in. He was always being picked on,
Mm,
always being bullied, and getting hit. And I was watching for a couple of months and that, and having spoken to him to sort of say, look, don't do this.
mm,
Go over there and do that, but stay away from these places, Neville. He actually went up to um, three people that he knew he was going to get a
mm,
reaction from. He would hit them, and then he'd spend the lunchtime running around, making sure he could try and evade them. And he'd have three or four people chasing around. He was playing tig chase. He had no friends, but he had a
mm,
wonderful playtime of people chasing him around. He was
mm.
getting the attention of other people through, well, I may get beat up if I get caught, but I can have a good time doing it. And that was his doing, and he was orchestrating it all, and he just could not hit people to get a reaction so that he could have a playtime with other people interacting with them.
Yeah.
Again, as you said, doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive. He
No.
was still happy that he had interaction.
So what we're saying here is he's got strategy,
Yeah.
and his strategy is not really very good for him. It works, but it's just not good for him. And at that point, that's when you start putting interventions in place, isn't it? You
Oh,
know,
very much so.
and allowing those children around him. You might have a little bit of support time with them to sort of say, look, this is what he's doing, and you know, is there any way that you guys can? You're going to be spending the lunchtime chasing him around anyway. Can we spend the lunchtime chasing him around in a positive way?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what that's about. And then he gets the right kind of attention. It's just as a little aside, by the way, Gordon. Every time you mention you were a school caretaker, it always makes me think of a guy that was a school caretaker in deepest, darkest Lincolnshire, and he used to do cars on the side.
All right.
In the playground or in the car park. I don't know. I can't remember. Um, but anyway, yeah. So getting that right kind of attention is really, really important, and
Yeah.
it's too easy to get the wrong kind of attention, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly,
Mm.
incredibly.
So
Um,
yeah. So thinking about that, but you've got to handle it well, and that's why I say jobs, roles, responsibilities, teachers, PA,
yeah.
all that sort of stuff. So you can then give them the attention they need in a really positive way. You only get out of people what you put in.
Indeed,
You
indeed.
really,
I,
really do.
I'd set up for quite a few children, being a first aider
Yeah,
or things like that because they love
yeah,
to help. They
yeah,
love sort of that responsibility. And you give them something that's going to be great and looking after other people and having that empathy and interactions, just fantastic.
yeah,
And they get a lot out of it.
yeah.
Uh, Unfortunately, schools see it as a little bit of a problem. Um,
Well, some schools, many schools, maybe, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of schools saying, "Well, we can't give them that. We can get them to hand out
mm,
the registers,
mm.
but that's not.
It's not enough, is it? No,
It's
it's not.
not.
And
It's
they
not.
don't do that anymore anyway. They'll do it on a laptop now.
They do, don't they? Yeah.
So yeah, it's all up on the screen, so you can't even do that. But, but, what was I going to say? Can't remember, but it felt
You've
important
not
at the
lost
time.
attention, have you?
I certainly have. And that's, again, interesting, isn't it? You know, um, as everyone knows, I sort of mention it every week almost, and I'm very into my soul music. And I went to an all-nighter at the week over the weekend of Christmas, or the Twixmas they call it, the bit in between. And
I've not heard
the
that before. That's very good.
Twixmas, yeah, you not
No,
had that? Oh, yeah, between Christmas and what the other one is, New Year.
no, yeah.
So and the music was rubbish, and I'd driven to Stafford,
Yeah.
and I drove home. I might have been there an hour, 2 hours, maybe, probably not though,
Gosh.
and I went home. You know, well, I'm an adult, I can do that sort of thing. But I
Yeah, yeah.
always sort of laugh about the kids that can't pay attention in the class or just not interested. And they just can't do it. They really, really just can't do it.
Mm.
And so we 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 do well to compare the needs of adults to the needs of children,
Yeah.
because adults have a choice most of the time. You ever done any of those packing jobs when you were young?
Packing jobs. No, then did I do any packing jobs? No, I've worked on production lines and that, but not done packing jobs. No.
Have you not? I remember having to put cherries on Bakewell tarts. That was my job all
Wow.
day, and I just
Yeah,
drive you crazy.
I was pork pies into boxes, I think. So I
That's a
suppose that was a
packing.
packing job. That packing
That's
job,
a,
yeah. Pork
yeah.
pies into a box
Oh, mate.
for
Yeah.
12-hour shift. Wow.
Did you stay long?
I was on an agency. I think I did 2 shifts.
Yeah, I think I did about
Because
the same.
you have to be so damn quick.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because if you take your eye off the ball,
Yeah.
there's things going past you. Think, oh my goodness, it is
Big piles
hard,
of
hard
pork
work.
pies everywhere, like in Charlie and the
Hard
Chocolate
work.
Factory. Yeah. So, attention. Here's an interesting one. If you get someone's attention by talking about something they're interested in, yeah,
Yeah.
particularly autism, this is, although it can be ADHD as well. If you get their attention in that way, what happens is that you've given them a reference point to the rest of the world. And in that reference point to the rest of the world, you've taught that young person that you're interested in something that they're doing.
Hmm.
But if they are doing something that you see as interesting, then what also happens is um, that their communication skills lift.
Yeah.
So, um, um, so we know that attention spans improve when speaking about special interests. We know that intonation, vocabulary, um, oh gosh, vocabulary, speaking and listening skills, all of these things improve when you're talking about things you're interested in.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little example. A mate of mine, he's gone missing off the face of the earth. If the former essential Elvis editors out there, get in touch. But anyway, It's a guy who was the editor of the International Elvis Presley magazine. And I remember him saying to me, he was so obsessed with Elvis. You could not imagine how obsessed this guy was. And he said to me, when we go out tonight, he said, we were going out with a few people. He said, try and steer the conversation onto Elvis because that's all I can talk about.
Yeah.
He wasn't joking. He wasn't joking. That really is something, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, I hate socializing
Mm,
in big areas, and
mm,
if I'm going out, Mandy will sort of say, "Don't talk about autism. Don't talk about
yeah,
neurodivergence." I
yeah.
says, "But I may not have anything else to talk about,
No, no.
depending who's going there. I mean,
Th
I can talk about bird watching, and I can talk a little bit about other things, but there's very few things I know an awful lot about and that I would get involved in because I just find them boring or not very interesting. Um, but you get me onto the subject of SCN and things like that. I'll
mm.
talk all night with somebody, um,
Well, I
without any
do.
problem at all.
I do know that you've got a strong affinity with fungus because you walked me around Hartstone Park one day and showed me all the fungus.
I did.
And that's about context, isn't it? Because on a normal day, fungus wouldn't interest me. But this was smack in the middle of COVID, and I think you were the first person I'd spoken to in 10 years. Well, during the Black Death then, but yeah, it's contextually. I was happy to talk about fungus
Yeah.
because everything
Well,
else was really crap at the time, wasn't it?
yeah, you see, we're both fun guys.
Yeah, we are
Boom,
fun
boom.
guys. Oh yeah, yeah, that's a great one, isn't it? Sort
Yeah, yeah.
of. So the attention, ADHD. All right, here we go. ADHD, attention to detail, go.
Unbelievable, I think.
Really?
Well, well, I may be wrong.
No, it's okay. No, you're
Maybe it's
not wrong.
because no, I'm saying maybe because with if I'm talking about Sam,
Hmm.
I he's PDA, autistic, ADHD, etc. His attention to detail is second to none
Is it
in terms of
really?
being able to see things, everything around him, and what
Hmm.
have you. And I've spoken to other ADHD, and their attention to detail of what is around them, they can tell me
Hmm.
everything that's there. I'd have
Yeah.
to look around and really study the room, and I still miss what they can see within seconds.
Yeah.
But actually, doing a task and paying attention to detail is completely different.
Hmm.
They'll do so much until they get bored, and then they're just not bothered.
Hmm.
Does that fit in with what you were thinking?
It's not about what I was thinking. It's not about what I was thinking. I just wanted your opinion on things
Yeah.
like
Well,
that. Um, I mean, attention to detail. So um, uh, sorry, something just pinged up in front of me. I thought I got it all switched off. Um,
it doesn't come across. I don't hear it.
do you know? Oh, that's
No.
good. I heard it in my headphones. It went boom. I'm like, attention to detail. So, um, I'm a record collector, and I went into a record shop in a city in England, and we were looking at something, and I was with my son Isaac, and I said, "Son, there's something about this record. There's something about this record. You know, I'm just bothered by it." And he said to me, it was about 10 quid, and he said to me, if you're bothered by it, yeah, buy it. So I was kind of bothered that I thought it was more than it was, more than I thought.
Yeah.
So we bought it, and it was sold as a reissue thing. And we got across the road to a cafe and we started looking at this thing. If you ever see two ADHD people doing an examination, a close examination of a record, yeah, it's quite funny, really. And we managed to value it, and we valued this record at £800, just sitting there. I've still got it, it's still sitting here. And you just go, that's attention to detail. But it's also to do with attention because I wouldn't give that same attention to detail to a heavy metal record or you know,
Yeah,
I just wouldn't. And so it's back to the give a shitometer. What do you want to pay attention to? What were you interested? Not even want. We've already covered that. It's a need, not a want.
yeah,
It's not a will. It's it's a need. But you know, it's back to that. If you want the attention of people, I suppose a nice simple way of doing it would be um, don't talk crap to people
yeah, yeah.
or their version of crap. You
Oh,
know,
exactly.
we
Yeah,
go back to the beginning where that guy says to me, my nephew's autistic. You know, first of all, it's not why I'm at this conference.
yeah,
You know, I'm there to help. I mean, it could have been that his nephew was being cared for by him, etc., but it clearly wasn't. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
I'm going to say you would have found that out in the sort of way he was
mm,
approaching and everything else.
yeah,
And
absolutely. But you know, but these it's all about what you're here for, what you're trying to do, how you're going to pay attention to people and who you're going to pay attention to. Absolutely important.
yeah, I don't know if you do this, but Sam and quite a lot of other people I've spoken to,
Mm,
particularly with ADHD, will go into a new environment, and
mm.
we'll say it's a cafe.
Yeah,
The minute he walks through that door, he can tell me where all the cameras are, where all the exits are, and the best place for him to sit that he can see the whole area,
right.
so that if he has to make an exit, he knows the quickest and most efficient way to get out.
And is there a reason?
He just to feel comfortable in his new
Oh,
environment. If he can't see what's there, and he doesn't know how he can escape if anything, he doesn't feel comfortable. He needs to know that, and that's what the reply from the other people I've spoken to about that. It's, oh yeah, I can't sit my back to the door. I've got to be able to face the door.
mm.
I've got to be able to do this. But it says I can tell you where every camera, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, when I sit down, I've never even thought about a camera.
No, no, I'm thinking about my coffee.
Yeah,
So, but the interesting thing is that is a matter of necessity for his anxiety, right?
yeah, yeah.
So the only other person I met, which is interesting, which through my friend who works in the Elvis world, yeah, is we met one of Elvis's bodyguards, former bodyguards,
Hmm.
yeah, and he did exactly the same thing, but for a different reason. That was his conditioning of
Yep.
working 20, 30 years with a major celebrity who's constantly at risk, you know, and that his conditioning was to make sure that Elvis was safe
Yeah. Yeah.
and this sort of thing. So that's conditioning. That's conditioning with this kind of attention, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
if you don't do it, you know, the fear is someone's going to get shot.
Exactly. And if you don't do it
Mm.
in terms of, it's not conditioning, but it's to reduce your anxieties or whatever, you're not
Yeah,
going to pay attention to the rest of the time you're in that restaurant,
yeah, yeah.
cafe, or whatever, or your surroundings, because you're too worried about what's going to happen. And so when we've got sensitivity to sound or light,
Mm.
if we've got the wrong environment and we don't get things right for them, their ability to pay attention to everything else that's going on is inhibited, really, because we're
So, yeah,
not quite
sorry.
ready.
Yeah, no. Um, right, Gordon, I think we're coming quite close to the end. If there's anything you wanted to
Gosh,
add,
it flies by these
they
things,
do.
don't they?
They're
I say it
great fun,
every
aren't
week.
they?
I
I
say it
know,
every
I
week.
know,
There's
I
so
know.
much to talk
We've
about.
been online 50 minutes, you know, which is
Yes.
incredible, really, isn't it? And
Mm.
uh, um, so parting shot, Gordon, attention, words of wisdom.
Attention. Well, for me, to parents and teachers, if we want our children to pay attention,
Mm,
we have to make it interesting. We have to make sure we've got
mm,
them where they want to
mm,
listen or get involved, um, and it's okay to move around.
mm,
By moving around, by doing various things, it's probably getting their attention more than having them sitting like robots.
yeah.
Whatever that child needs to get through that lesson, or get through their activity, listen to what they're saying, because I know from my own children, if they're busy doing something, they are listening intently to you,
Mm.
and they are paying attention. If they're sat staring at you, they're elsewhere.
Somewhere else.
Um,
Yeah.
and so therefore it's know the child and don't make them do things that are going to stop them being
Mm.
able to get involved and pay attention to the activity that's taking place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're more articulate than me. You always are. So my words of wisdom was just don't be boring.
Yeah,
If you want someone to be interesting, say something interesting, be interesting. It's not easy all the time. Certainly with neurodivergent, you've got to be interesting because
yeah,
that single track mind, that single attention, hugely important. So, listeners, what do you think? Get in touch with us. What can
yeah.
you tell? We've literally just hang on a second. I've just got to Elsa, there's someone on the phone. Um, so sorry. We're waiting
No, I
for
love it.
we're waiting for a plumber. So we live the normal life. This week we've had ill health. We've had all sorts going on, and now the plumbing's not working. Yeah,
Oh,
what do you think? Get in touch. Let us know what you think. All about attention. We've just scratched the surface.
we certainly have. Yeah, I think I wasn't paying attention there for a minute. I was doing something else because you were talking about the thing, so I wasn't paying attention. I do apologize. I was thinking about what we're going to do next week, and I got it in my head, but I couldn't think what it was. I'd had it written down, so I brought that in there.
Right.
But but yes, we'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, please do let us know, and you can get hold of Andrew at.
WhitehouseAndrew@hotmail.co.uk. Tell them 2 minutes. WhitehouseAndrew@hotmail.co.uk. And you at
And it's packed,
support.
PAACT, support at hotmail.co.uk.
And we always have something, don't we? A couple of weeks ago, it was somebody wanting the toilet. Do you remember?
I do.
Right.
That was
Look after
lovely.
yourself, Gordon.
Yeah. Okay.
And right. Okay. I'll log off. And if you can hang around, is that all
Yeah.
right? Right. Mm-mm-mm.